What's up, Leafs fans? Welcome back to another Leafs Nation After Dark. I'm Zach Phillips, and tonight we're going to be breaking down game number 55 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season as they lose this one to the Vancouver Canucks here tonight, 2-1 in their final game before the Four Nations break. We'll dig into what went on here tonight, what led to this loss. We'll get into our best bet. We'll get into super chats, all of that and more. And tonight's show, as always, is a presentation of Bet365, proud partner of the Leafs Nation pregame and the Leafs Nation After Dark. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION, NATION. That's code NATION, all caps, NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And tonight, as I see in the chat there already, we do have a couple of super chats. We will get to all of those as usual. We'll answer everything you guys send in there. If you guys want your question or your comment read on the show, you want it brought up, you want to hear how I respond, what I think, you want other people in the chat to talk about it as well, you can send your super chats there. You just got to click into the live chat, and then while you're in the live chat, you can send the dollar amount that you would like to send with your message or your question. You either drag the slider or you type the desired amount. It'll come through. I will read and answer all of them. Everything you guys send here. And this season, we do have an unbelievable partner with our super chats, and that would be Sick Kids as our Sick Kids charity sponsor. All proceeds from the super chats go to Sick Kids. Over the last couple of shows, we have had some massive nights here for Sick Kids where we've had $220, $250, and $180 nights. This is basically just over the last couple there. I set a goal here tonight if we get to 15. Normally, I try to get it, every set of 50 likes, 50, 100, 150. I do smelling salts. Well, here I threw in tonight again. If we get to 15 super chats of any dollar amount, that's just 15 total super chats, we'll throw in the smelling salts there again because it goes to a good cause. It goes to a great initiative here that we're a part of on the show, and whether it's the After Dark or the morning show, it doesn't really matter, but you guys send those in. Get them in here. We'll answer them all, and we do have a couple already. So let's just start with these as we kind of work our way into the thoughts of the game tonight. As well, I just want to throw this out there right now. If people want to call into the show, you are more than welcome to. You don't have to come on camera. You just have to call in, give your name, tell us who you are, and what your thoughts are on the game. How are you feeling about this one tonight? You have questions, comments, hot takes. I don't care what it is. You go in, click that link that's on there, call into tonight's show, and you can give your thoughts. We'll talk about everything that's gone on in this game, the Western road trip, your thoughts ahead of the Four Nations, all of that. You guys just head on over there to the link that I just posted in the chat. I can pin it at the top there. But let's start tonight's show with our super chats. So, 2 super chats sitting here as of right now. First one, obviously, has no question. It's just a comment, a thought thrown out there, and it was more so in regards to the fact that I put out there earlier the goal of 15 super chats. You guys can see that there. It is the goal of the show. There's a target to get to, and it'll go throughout the entire course of the show here tonight. Robert Smith just says, okay, Zachary, with an O. I don't know where the O came from, but thank you, Robert, for the super chat. The other one here, a little bit more relative to the show tonight, which is something we can dig into. Maxentius Decimus, 88, 91, 16 is 100% the worst money to output line ever made. Yeah, they didn't really generate too much, and I think that was kind of the story of the night. I think it was Colin McGillis earlier who brought it up that, this wasn't them getting goalied or anything like that. Yeah, he made a couple of big saves, but at the other end, Joseph Woll did as well against the Canucks, and obviously both ends, goaltending, making some stops like that is going to kind of, lead them to a direction where, okay, yeah, it does end up being a tighter game. It does end up being one where, you're not scoring that much on either end at 5-on-5 and not having those things come up where, you're getting crazy expected goals and chances generated and stuff. It was coming up, and every time it did, it seemed like it was pretty much getting snuffed out by their goaltender. I don't think that this was a night where it was goaltending where you got you got goalied. Sorry, trying to find the word to get to that. I just don't think you generated enough. I think it picked up as the game went on, where you started to get some more going. But I think one of the things that hurt the team here tonight was being a little bit too loose defensively as well. They were kind of giving up too much. And then basically after the first period there, when Vancouver was playing this real tight shutdown game, and they were kind of saying, hey, you know what? We're not going to let you just walk to the net. We're not going to let you just have all these chances and opportunities going through here. It was basically a very heavy Vancouver game, and then it kind of cleaned up, and the Leafs are at least able to kind of participate, but defensively, it wasn't really there for them. As far as that line specifically that was brought up, obviously there it gets split up into the third period, where you see Domi go back or go off that first line, Marner go back to the first line there, so then you end up back with Knies, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, and I think it was Pacioretty got in for the most part of that third period to close it out. I feel like this is going to piss people off. I get it. But this is why when you see and hear about some of these players who are out there, and I don't want to do the whole, like, who are you trading for kind of conversation tonight. We can get into it a little bit. If you guys have questions about it, sure, I'll answer those. But I feel like this is where, like, people get really attached to prospects and don't want to move on from somebody in the event that, oh, wow, what if that guy goes on and has a really good career? My counterpoint to it is kind of, it's something I heard Rosie and Nick talk about, and I think that they're right, and the more I've thought about it, it's like, you don't know when you're going to get goaltending like this again. You obviously hope that Wall and Stolarz can continue this throughout the rest of their 10 years here in Toronto and for years to come, but it's not a guarantee. Like, look at St. Louis and Binnington. Binnington's a good goalie, but the way that he played that season, that they kind of pulled themselves from last to get to a playoff spot, to get into the playoffs and go on and win the Stanley Cup, that's goaltending that they haven't gotten from him since then. And they signed him to a contract, and I think he was great then. But I kind of look around at a night like this and say, your depth gets exposed. You put Domi up to that first line there to try to continue to get him going. He had been playing a couple of good games here on this Western road trip. You're trying to build off of that as you head into this break that you're about to have, and you're trying to let him keep that momentum going, ride the wave of what he had just kind of completed for himself over the last stretch of games. It wasn't looking that great tonight. There wasn't much offense being generated by anybody. Domi looked fine, I thought, at points, but it was just like you're looking at a stale, stagnant, slow, quiet, whatever adjectives you want to use to describe that offense. That's how it felt for these guys for the most part here tonight. You switch that up, but ultimately the bigger picture story is your depth is getting exposed a little bit. And, you know, no disrespect to the guy, but Pontus Holmberg is probably playing out of above his weight class here. He's punching above his weight class a little bit. Like, I don't think Pontus Holmberg is on your lineup or in your lineup come playoff time. And he's currently sitting in your third line center spot when Max Domi goes up and plays on the first line. And then if he's not, you're bouncing guys around because maybe at times you've got Bobby McMahon going to the second line. And so then you've got Max Domi coming down there. And then now you're looking at a third line that's kind of lacking any type of consistency, lacking any kind of identity. And it's Pontus and Max and Nick Robertson who, like, I mean, Nick Robertson score a goal challenge, like, level impossible here because the guy can't find a way to bury anything to save his life. Again, and I mean, it's probably getting annoying for people to hear. I think he's playing hard. I think he's giving it his all. I think he's giving a lot of effort out there, but you can't score goals. And that third line, we're looking at them struggle to create anything offensively outside of Bobby McMahon right now. Like, it's McMahon or nothing. And if McMahon's not going and he's not driving stuff, you're not really seeing much from anybody else. This is more of a big picture conversation than kind of specific to what happened tonight, but I do feel like that bubbles to the surface when you see Domi up on the first line. You're like, Bobby's the only one getting anything going on that third line. Holmberg is effectively a black hole, and I know that there's some Holmberg truthers out there who are defenders who are kind of getting mad every time they're hearing us talk about him in this way, but I just don't think he's very impactful. So kind of where I'm going to, and to circle back and close out this point, the thought on this is if you look around and you see Scott Lawton's, Braden Shen, and like pieces out there like that you know can bump players down or out of your lineup and give you a massive boost and kind of bolster your bottom six and change the dynamic of everything. Like thinking about taking a guy like, just for example, Scott Laughton, and he slides in as your 3C. Well, now you got Bobby McMahon and Scott Laughton and Calle Jarnkrok when he comes back. And then, you move guys around. Maybe Nick Robertson goes and plays on your fourth line. Maybe Pacioretty's on your second line. Maybe he's on your fourth line. I don't know. But if you can look around and find some guys like that where it just adds to your bottom six, like you're getting some extra guys and extra play and scoring from guys around them like Matthew Knies and Bobby McMahon, which is something you haven't really got in years past. It's always just been the four and then a huge drop off and then other people. I know that there's some holes in this team. It's just one of those things that I'm looking at roster construction wise saying, hey, there's other people around that are actually contributing here right now. Your goaltending's unbelievable. This is the best defensive group that I think we've seen here in the entire Matthews era. Maybe you can go out there and get some pieces. And I mean, I know that that's big picture. We're looking way ahead of ourselves and we're looking to trade deadline, but it's kind of coming with the conversation of looking at tonight's game and going, you get exposed on your depth chart a little bit. Look at the top and look at how you built out those lines tonight. You want in the future to have a shakeup where you get at least 2 and 2. You don't want a Matthews line like that where you load up the second line. I'd rather see one of those guys, whether it's Nylander or Marner, go down to your third line and play there. And then that's how it goes, because this one tonight, Matthews line couldn't get stuff going. You shut down the second line and it's over. There's no offensive production coming from anybody else. We saw that basically throughout the entire first period. It picked up a little bit in the second. I thought Matthews looked pretty decent. I thought Nylander was on it again here tonight. JT was okay, but look around and you go, second line shut down, they couldn't score. Well, the Leafs don't get any goals. Well, the Leafs aren't generating enough offensively. Vancouver basically had 2 assignments, and the first one wasn't going that great themselves. So then they go, let's just cut off the second line. Crit Commanda, honestly, I don't think the problem with the Leafs is the roster. It's something endemic to the organization, like how every player feels like a small cog in a huge machine. I mean, maybe. I don't know. You are right, but it's like it's hard to pinpoint anything like that because it almost like leads us down this dark path of conversations about like curses and stuff, and like I don't want to open that jar of worms here tonight about curses and is the organization cursed and is there problems within or like whatever. Like, you have all the money in the world. You've got some of the best staff, coaching staff, training, all of it, like mental coaches, all of it here in Toronto. And we just can't find a way to get out of it. I get what you're saying, Crit Commanda, but it's like that just opens like these doors to these dark hallways that I'm not really willing to venture down here tonight. All right, couple of super chats to get to. All right, super chats. Let's start with this one. Also, as well, if anybody wants to call into the show again, you're welcome to. The chat, the link to call is pinned in the top of the chat there, so make sure to hit that. We are up to now $25 donated on the show here tonight. Over $25, donated on the show here tonight. Dan says, "Oh, Philly, I was feeling no pain last time I checked in a couple of games ago. Polished off mine and got into the wife's vino, sending it up for the kids, and I'm out. See you on the other side of Four Nations and into trade deadline." Dan, thank you for the super chats. Yes, Dan was the MVP of the stream 2 games ago. I think it was the Calgary stream there, Dan. Is that was the one that you were buzzing in there? I think Dan himself might have sent $100 in super chats. He was by far the MVP of the chat there that night, just ripping super chats in. You could tell Dan was definitely enjoying himself that night. Let's put it that way. I think Dan would agree to that. But thank you for that. proceeds, again, go to Sick Kids. So thank you for sending in the super chat, Dan. We do have another one let's get to. Yeah, also, by the way, just to Dan's point there, Dan pointed out, see you on the other side of Four Nations and into trade deadline. Obviously, the morning show still goes every day, Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. As well, on top of that, The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, which you can catch me on, will be live Monday to Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. If you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to go over there and check that out. Subscribe to the channel, whatever you got to do. Turn on notifications on Daily Faceoff. Turn on notifications here, Leafs Nation 401. You don't want to miss anything. Videos, shorts, guest interviews, morning take, after dark, pre-game videos, all that kind of stuff. It's all happening here on the channel. So make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. We do have another super chat here. We just played the animation for, and that would be from Jeff McKay. Jeff, thank you for the super chat. Jeff says, this team sucks when they play any team with a bit of bite. Sorry, not going far with their fear of having the puck when it's hard. Jeff, I think maybe in the entire time I've been doing the show, this is the harshest super chat I think I've seen you send, which would indicate to me there is at least some level of frustration following this loss here tonight. Yeah, I like that's been the concern with this group at all times, and I know that Nick is like a little bit more lenient on it because he looks at these and goes, okay, you know what? It's regular season. We're not going to get these tests until the playoffs. But I think you can learn a lot about the group and who they are and the mentality of the group while the regular season is going on. And it's something that I have constantly wanted to kind of get clarification on and know at least through 82 games whether they're more or less likely to play a more playoff style of hockey. I saw a comment earlier there as well. This kind of goes along with it about this is the least dangerous. It was something like that. It was the least dangerous, offensively they've been with Berube. Like he's completely taken away their offensive ability, their ability to create and generate anything. I get that, but my counterpoint to it is you did 8 years, you're into year 9, 8 years of the other way with Sheldon Keefe or I guess not 8 years, but more the greater part of 8 years of Sheldon Keefe of doing the offensive style. Mind you, defense was decent, but it was run and gun and not playoff style of hockey. The counter to it would be that this is much more in tune with what it takes to have success in the playoffs, and kind of looking around and like, I'd rather play or be preparing to play that style, because the one thing that we've seen this team do year in and year out is play offense, play the offensive style of game all season, get to like 2 weeks out, and then you're like, let's play playoff hockey. Or you get to right before the playoffs, like the week before, and they're like, yeah, let's play playoff hockey. A couple of times we've seen them, it feels like they've walked into the first round and being like, oh shit, we forgot that we have to play playoff style of hockey. You can't have that. Like you just cannot have that kind of switch go. Like look at Florida, look at Colorado, Dallas, Vegas. They play that style all year round. So I personally, every time I see these complaints about the Berube style and how it limits offense or cuts off offense, I just don't want to hear it. Like, I really don't want to hear it, because I would rather them be playing a more physical, tougher style of hockey, a tight defensive style of hockey that is more inclined to have success in the playoffs than what we've seen them do in the past. Like, we see them loosen up and play pond hockey up and down the ice, as Biz pointed out about Connor Bedard the other day. But, like this pond hockey where defense is a little bit secondary to them, and it's not translated. Colin there pointing out as well, I don't think a coach can take away offense. They can improve and focus on defense, but once you're in the offensive zone, That's all on the creativity of the forwards and the ability to finish. Yeah, it is, right? You get to the playoffs, or you get to the offensive zone there. You play the defensive style of hockey. You didn't get rid of any of the offensive players that you had. Like, you didn't get rid of any of the goal scorers or play or chance creators or anything like that. You've had all of those guys in your system. They've remained in your system. You even added scoring from Bobby McMahon and Matthew Knies. I don't think we should be looking at Craig Berube and saying, oh, you killed the offense of this team, or Brad Treliving and saying, you killed the offense of this team. They need to be creating more, 100%, but I think a lot of that comes from, like, Nick Robertson. That's a guy who's been, he's a goal scorer, and he can't find a way to get pucks in the back of the net right now. Max Domi, here's another guy who's struggling mightily right now playing. He can't get anything going offensively. Like, there are just guys around it. Yeah, you look down at the fourth line, for sure. Steven Lorentz, David Kampf, Ryan Reeves, those are not guys, Connor Dewar, those are not guys who are, goal scorers and offensive drivers. Like, it's just, the offense isn't going to come from them. You should be able to get it elsewhere. And it's not really that you're not getting scoring right now and, like guys aren't finishing on chances. It's like, you're not getting the chances. Those opportunities are not being created right now to the extent that they have been in years past, I guess, is kind of where to go. Daily Faceoff there in the chat, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, whether it's Morning Cup of Hockey, 9 a.m. Eastern time, Monday to Thursday. Vacation Vic obviously likes Fridays off. If it is DFO Live, if it's the Sheet with Jeff Merrick and myself there, every Monday to Friday at 3 Eastern time, you're going to want to check it out, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. But head on over there. We'll continue to get to the Super Chats. We'll take some callers here tonight as well if people do want to call in. I should check in with Gord. I don't see him in the chat, which usually he is in the chat, and if he wants to call in. But we can get a Gord's Corner going if Gord's available, if he wants to call in tonight. But otherwise, we'll keep going here, kind of breaking down tonight's game. I mean, some people are very pissed off about the result here tonight. I'm not quite. I think that it's nice to see that you went on the run. You didn't get blown out here tonight. You were not very good in the first period. Let's call it what it is. You were not very good in the first period, but you kind of picked it up after that. You were very loose defensively, which, yeah, like, not ideal. You don't want to be doing that. Just messaging Gord here, seeing if he's around. But yeah, you don't want to have to be waiting through 20 minutes to get your offense going. And ideally, defense is tighter than what it was here tonight. But I'm not, like, pissed with the result. You were in it. You battled hard at the end. You pulled your goalie real early. And also on top of that, the one thing that we're kind of looking at in all of this is, I mean, the goal that was scored by Vancouver is OEL just taking I was trying to think of the wording of how I wanted to go with this. It's not like a reckless penalty. It's just like, he didn't, like, get pissed at the guy or anything. He just lost control of his stick and hit Sherwood in the face. He made an unbelievable play before that. He broke up a chance for Sherwood, got inside, didn't take a penalty. He goes to the corner, hammers Sherwood. And then they're kind of jostling a little bit, being there beside each other. And then as he goes to turn, he lets his stick get high. It's a dumb penalty. Like, it's not like he intentionally did it and knew, hey, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it because I'm pissed off and whatever. But he just let his stick get out of control. He hit him in the head, goes to the box. Vancouver scores on the power play. That's capitalize on your chances. This Leafs power play looked not very good here again. And I think it was Frank Corrado on Overdrive that I was listening to not long ago that was saying, when when Marner was out in the game against Calgary and the way that they were playing on the power play there without him, maybe you keep Marner off of that power play. It's going to piss people off, but I'm for it. Like, I'm okay with not putting Marner on the power play. It feels like when he's out there, they just overdo it a little bit too much. Like, the puck doesn't zip around quite as quick. He wants to hold it on his stick for longer periods of time. Everyone kind of force feeds things. Like, we also struggle to get into the zone. It feels like half the power play is spent trying to set up. It feels like half the power play is them trying to get into the zone and do anything. Like, they walk in, they're all clogged up. They basically handcuff a guy who's in the same position as them or a worse position as them and say, here, you take this thing because I don't want it. I don't want to deal with having to hold this and battle through traffic. Here's the puck. This is on you to figure this one out. Like, there was a play there. And again, it's with these dreaded, like, double drop passes. It's skating up the ice. All of a sudden, 4 guys are parked up across the blue line. You drop a pass back to Nylander. He's got to go 1-on-3 into the zone because of how all the defenders are bunched up. They know Nylander's the only guy who can do anything. They've pretty much got everyone on the Leafs covered because everyone is standing still in a straight line. Like, you're effectively playing Red Rover across the blue line. Nylander gets in the zone. He's basically getting pinched off towards the wall and got nowhere to go with the puck. So then his only options are effectively dump it in the corner and have to go and retrieve this thing back, which you never really want to be doing dump and chase on the power play. Or the other one is hand it off to a guy who's also just as covered as he is. Like, zone entries are ugly. They can't find a comfortable way to get in. And then if they do, it's them panicking for like 20 seconds trying to get something set up because it took so long to get in there that now you're getting the puck. You're trying to snap it around quickly, and Vancouver, or whoever the opposing team is that's playing on the penalty kill, is basically just driving out at you and taking away time and space like this. You got nothing to do with anything out there. You got to play hot potato with the puck because as soon as it gets to you, someone's on you. You're not comfortable, and it's just broken up passes, broken up plays. Like, you had a little stretch where the power play looked good there. You go back to the 5-forward power play, and all of a sudden, everything's fucked up again. I don't know how or why this is a thing. It's like you've got so much talent, so much skill out there. I don't know if they're overthinking it, if they're trying too hard, what the problem is right now with the power play. But you're right back to where you were before the start of this Western road trip against Edmonton, where you popped off on the power play, kept it going on Tuesday against Calgary, and now all of a sudden here you are, and it was abysmal again tonight. You have a chance at the end of the game. You go 6-on-5 with like 3.5 minutes remaining in the third period there, down a goal. You pull the goalie, you draw a penalty, you get sent to the power play, and for basically like a minute 30 of it, it's spent going back to your own zone and getting the puck and then trying to get back into the offensive zone. Go back to the defensive zone, pick up the puck, go trying to get back into the offensive zone. There's no setup. Nothing is comfortable. Nothing is clean. You've got far too much money on that power play, especially with those 5 forwards out there right now, to not be generating anything. Like, there's just too much talent, too much money to have this crappy of a power play. And you're down a goal late in the game. You got gift-wrapped an opportunity, and the best chance you had, mind you, was an incredible chance where Matthews goes across to Nylander. Nylander has the shot, holds it, fakes for a second, then hits Matthews down back at the other side, and he goes for a one-timer, and he gets robbed by Lankinen going side to side. That's good movement. It's quick puck movement, and it allows you a prime opportunity for Matthews to get a shot off. Unfortunately, he couldn't get the one-timer, but that's the best chance you had, and that kind of takes people's minds off of how bad the power play was prior to that. It needs to be better. Simple as that. It needs to be better. You had a good stretch. We're right back at it. We're right back to where we were, where it's just like we can't get anything going. And it's not acceptable for a power play with that much money. I want to talk about Morgan Rielly, but as we go to talk about Morgan Rielly, one thing I saw was a tweet or a text during the show here tonight, or during the game tonight, and it was Morgan Rielly could be on Four Nations, Team Canada. after the week that he's just put together? Well, Morgan Rielly may not be on Four Nations. Morgan Rielly may be headed to Cabo or Cancun, or maybe he's just shipping his kid off to his parents' house so that he can, get some sleep to come back out the other side of everything here. But he's not part of the Four Nations, but we are. Across the Nation Network, and specifically here with the Leafs Nation, we will be part of the Four Nations. And no, it's not going to be with live streams. We'll be on Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern time with Leafs Morning Take. I'll be filling in for one of the days there as well for Nick Alberga on the show. So you make sure to subscribe if you want to see me. I think I'll be on with Rosie that day, but make sure to subscribe. But we will be involved with the Four Nations because we will be at Greta Bar. Greta Bar YYZ. It's an unbelievable spot that I frequent here downtown. Not going out tonight, I'll be honest with you. And I saw earlier Daily Face-Off there in the chat did point out, oh, nice hat. Yes, I am wearing the Small Town Strip Club hat. I was at their concert last night downtown. That was it for me for this weekend, though. If I was going out tonight, I would be going to Greta Bar YYZ, 590 King Street West. It's an unbelievable spot. I don't really like the club scene or anything anymore down here. I like to go, be able to hang out with people, be able to talk to my friends, be able to listen and hear everybody. And I also like to kick producer Vic's ass at air hockey. That is well known here on the show. That is the one spot that I dominate at Greta Bar, is the air hockey as well. My friends, my girlfriend are well aware that they will not and could never beat me at Connect 4 basketball. It is an unbelievable spot down here in Toronto. But more than that, we're going to be involved also Saturday, February 15th. If it wasn't big enough reason to be getting out and hitting the town with your friends and just because it's a Saturday in February and there's no Leafs hockey on, well, there's a Canada-US game at the Four Nations at Greta Bar YYZ. We will be in attendance there, myself and Nick Alberga, presented by Fountain Tire. You don't want to miss Canada versus USA. We've got ticket giveaways and signed memorabilia, trivia, and t-shirt tosses happening all night long. It's your chance to party it up and cheer for a once-in-a-lifetime Team Canada. Entry is free with reservation. It is a ticketed event, so you need to make sure you reserve your spot. Head on over to nationgear.ca to get your free tickets now. The doors are open at 6 p.m. and puck drop is at 8 p.m. And remember, this is a 19 plus event. So make sure to head on over there, sign up today, nationgear.ca. It's a free event, but the game's on. Alberga and I will be there. We'll be hanging out. We'll be having fun, watching the game, talking about everything. And then, as you just heard, tons of other things happening throughout the night there as well. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to head on over nationgear.ca. Yeah, Greta Bar is a good spot. Fun spot to be going to. And also on top of last night was my night to go out and go and see Small Town Strip Club. Tomorrow, out of nowhere, well, tomorrow's Super Bowl as well, but tomorrow out of nowhere, I normally play Friday night. So it kind of worked out, but kind of didn't, because I got to go to the Small Town Strip Club show. But they moved our game to 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. A 10:30 a.m. Sunday game is no bueno, especially when you're trying to be going out to Greta Bar, but that's why I put it off limits here tonight. Just will not and cannot be getting myself over to Greta Bar and managing to get up for the show or for the game tomorrow. Well, I mean, get up is one story, but actually be functional and play a good game or like play a reasonable game. Not likely if I'm making my way over to Greta Bar. I'll be there till 2 a.m. when they turn the lights on, just kicking ass at Connect 4 basketball, basically making my girlfriend really mad because she can't beat me. She can't beat me at Connect 4 basketball, dice, whatever it is. It is what it is. Maybe one day. All right. Let's keep it going here as well. Super chats, keep getting those super chats in. We get to 15 total super chats on the show tonight. We'll do more smelling salts. We're 5 away as well from getting to 50 likes here on the stream tonight. So get to those. We get smelling salts. So we'll have the whole shebang going here. We got new bottles, all of that. I've got bottles for Nick Alberga when he gets back. I got bottles for producer Vic when he's back. Like all the boys will be hooked up with some smelling salts here as well. And we'll also let's dig into what we've got on the chat and see what's going on. 6 1/3 Zach, listen, I'm calmer now. Well, I'm glad you are. I'm glad you were able to cool down there 6 1/3. I'm happy for you, and I think that it's I think tonight's not a night to like lose it. I mean, the biggest thing for me is like the biggest stories of tonight, before I get to one of the big positives here, was your depth gets exposed. I don't think you're looking around kind of going like, okay, you're lacking some third and fourth line scoring. You're lacking some ability to win those minutes is one of the better ways like I like to put it is like, hey, maybe you're not going to be scoring all the time. Like there's a reason those guys are third and fourth liners, but I look at it and like I want to win the minutes. Spend more time in the offensive zone. Get a cycle game going. Create some chances. Yeah, maybe your big boys are the ones who come out and score more frequently or capitalize on opportunities. But if you can create a cycle game, hold the other team in their zone, maybe you force an icing, or maybe you get a change in there and get your first and your second lines out there so that they can take advantage of the other team's third and fourth lines. Those are better ways to set things up if your third and fourth lines are winning their minutes. And right now, it just feels like they're not. Maybe they're not getting their teeth kicked in, but I don't think that they're creating more than what's being created against them. And that's kind of where I look at where it's like most nights is just kind of a wash. And sometimes that's okay, but if it's happening more often than not, then you need to adapt. You need to make some changes. So that's one of them. The other thing is power play going back to where it was, and the offensive generation, which comes with the depth, but just not being able to create. Obviously, I think Vancouver played really well defensively here tonight, but you were lacking any kind of like go. I know that's like a Neanderthal way of thinking about it and talking about it. I understand that, but you were lacking some oomph in your game tonight. Chance generation was not there. Power play wasn't happening. Yeah, 6 1/3. Maybe keep your stick down in a tight game midway through the third. I would agree with that. They were not. That penalty by OEL was just it's an errant stick. You cannot have that. Yeah, you late game, you're at a tie game. Clean it up. I mean, I'm not gonna rag on him because I think he's being really good. Especially considering the money that he signed for and the role that he's playing. I think he's being pretty awesome. But that play could not happen. And yeah, your PK is dropping off a little bit. But I mean, what was it? 5 for 5 the other night against the Kraken. That's a pretty good night. Like that's not a night I'm going to be mad about at all. I mean, follow it up here tonight. You go, what? 1 for 2. OEL was in the box. It's basically a point blank shot. It's a good goal, good movement around by the Canucks to generate that one, but happens. Okay. What else do we got here in the chat? What else do we got here on the show tonight? Another super chat. Jeff McKay, another super chat. Jeff says, I do like that they are being better for their goalie in their own end. When the other team, it's when the other team gives our team no room to move, they seem to clutch their sticks tighter and panic a lot. Jeff, what you've just touched on is what we see this team do in the playoffs. Let's read that again. When the other team gives our team no room to move, they seem to clutch their sticks tighter and panic a lot. Carter Hutton came on the show following the game against the Minnesota Wild, and I read him the quote by Tree Living from the summer when he talked about how they're not able to score in games that are tighter defensively and in the playoffs. Well, in the playoffs, things get tight. Things are more difficult, more physical. I mean, it's said there in the chat by Diz K, aka Playoff Hockey. That's exactly the point. And Carter came on in that after that Minnesota game and brought up the losses that we just saw. Columbus, Ottawa, Minnesota. All three of those teams went into it playing a playoff style of game. They're desperate teams. They're playing tight defensively. They don't give up much. They take advantage of offensive opportunities when they come up. They're not really high-flying offenses, but they're able to basically give you nothing, give you no room, and play physical on you, play tough on you. This Leafs team is struggling to get anything generated against that. And the concerning part to me right now, which is why I look at, ahead of the trade deadline and saying, hey, maybe there's other pieces out there. And I think why we continue to have the conversation of, is this the right group of guys when you talk about the core four to have any type of success in the playoffs, is because here you are watching them play these playoff games again and watching them not be able to generate, not be able to produce, not be able to score goals. This is what happens in the playoffs. This is why you lose those games and we walk away saying, oh, wow, they couldn't score in the playoffs. Well, right now you're watching them play games that are more closely related to playoff style of hockey, and they can't score goals. They can't generate chances. If that's not indicative of what could happen in the playoffs here, if something doesn't change, I don't know what is. They're telling you right now, we can't play that way. We can't score that way. We still cannot and will not do it. That's what's concerning. Looking around going, we can't score. Like, how is no one else, panicked about that? Because it's a playoff thing. You can't do it then. You've never been able to do it consistently then. Now you can't do it in the regular season when they're basically saying, hey, here's a game tonight where Vancouver plays like a playoff brand of defense and takes time away and plays physical and plays hard on you, and they're desperate. Well, can't score, can't generate chances. Here's Minnesota, Ottawa, Columbus. They want to shut it down, play tight, not give you much, not give you space. Oh, we can't score, can't generate. That's concerning. That's concerning. And, I mean, you can't do anything with the core while you're in it right now. You're not going to be able to trade any of these guys ahead of the deadline. Like, that's not what's going to happen. So, you have to find solutions elsewhere. That's why I think maybe you go more aggressively pursuing people at the deadline and push. Maybe you try to get somebody with terms so that it's not just a rental and they're in and out. You get somebody who could be a part of this team in the future. I know that it was thrown out there that, Dylan Cousins could be a guy. Nick and I did a video about it here on the channel. Maybe it's a guy like Braden Shen or it's Scott Lawton who's out there. If you get a guy who's got another year, 2, 5 years left like Dylan Cousins, those guys can be a part of the program for years to come. Maybe you get an extension signed. You're not worried about a Ryan O'Reilly where you've gone out there and traded for the guy and he walks at the end of the season. They can be part of the DNA of this team moving forward. And then maybe you reevaluate things in the summer if these guys don't follow through on the playoff brand. Because that's what happened here tonight. Tight defensively, take away time and space, you can't score goals. That's what happens every year when, April, May, June all come up. Maybe it is the core. Maybe it's the guys around them. But if you can go out there and give yourself a chance now to find out, and you get a piece who can be here in the future, and you don't risk, trading away picks and prospects to bring somebody in to give it a chance, and then it doesn't work, and you lose that guy, and you lose pieces of the core. Maybe Marner decides to walk, or you don't want to pay him, or whatever. John Tavares walks, whoever it is, however it plays out. But you look around this game again tonight, playoff style, no goals being scored. Offense, not really coming. I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things that is like concerning where I would like something tangible with to be able to work off of when I look at whether or not they can or can't score. Scout the Wookie. Zach, I think it's all more lessons. I'll finally put it together in round 1. Oh boy. All right. Needed some water. Sorry. What else do we got? We got a caller waiting. They sent a message and they said, let's talk trade. Let's talk trade is what they said. Let's get this caller in here. If they are on the line and they can hear, I see that their mic is muted. So if they were on the line and they can hear, let's get this caller in here. Our first caller of the night. Who do we have? How are you doing tonight? And why do you want to talk trades? Do we got you there? Are you on the line? I see you're toggling mute and on and off mute, so kind of let them try to figure that out here in the meantime. But I don't know what the heck is going on there right now, if they're able to figure that out. But yeah, when we get them, speak up there. Let me know if you got your audio working. But if anybody else does want to call in here as well tonight, you're more than welcome to, as always. Just waiting to see if we can get this caller going as of right now. But we are 2 likes away from 50, so make sure to keep hitting that like button. Get your super chats in. Here on the show, proceeds go to Sick Kids Charity. It is an unbelievable initiative we've got going on. On the show, we read all the questions and comments. If we can get ourselves to 15 super chats on the show here, we will do yet again more smelling salts. So we'll just keep going and going. Matthew Jack there says in the chat, time for a rebuild. And I think that's a little aggressive. I don't know if we need a rebuild here tonight, but following this, I mean, you're still a really good team. It's more so just kind of wondering about mentality of the group. Can they get that done? Can they take the next step? Do they have that DNA in them to be able to play playoff style of hockey? And I think it's like a game like this that comes off of, yeah, you had a great run here on the Western road trip, and that's like kind of part of it. I'm not really like that frustrated with the loss like this. Like, you did just win against Edmonton, Calgary, Seattle, walk through. It's the final game before Four Nations. You also, on top of that, get yourself, into a tight game where you lose by 1 goal that was scored on the power play. Happens. I mean, you battled, you pushed through at the end. I just wish that they could have generated more offensively, and I think it leads to bigger picture conversations that we're having here on the show. And if we can get this, mic situation figured out on the caller here, let's see them if they want to join back in here in a second, because I could see that they were trying to figure it out. The muting was going on and off, but was just having no audio coming through. Couldn't hear anything from them there. So, yeah. Let's talk about one of the positives from tonight, though. And one thing that I think was very beneficial to this group over the last week is the play of Morgan Rielly. He really stepped up, elevated his game. He started to be much more engaged in the offense, and it didn't look like he was forcing things. Like, he looked like he was comfortable out there. He didn't look lost defensively as much. There was a few plays where, over the last couple of games where it's like, hey, why did you make that play? Why are you doing that? But at least we started to see him transitioning into the better side of his game, the better side of Morgan Rielly. He looked pretty decent alongside OEL. Like, we kind of started to level out and find something there for Morgan Rielly. And if we've got the caller here on the line, if they have thoughts on Morgan Rielly, feel free. Oh, as they just left there. I don't know. We're battling away back behind the scene. But Morgan Rielly, he deserves his credits, because right now he's just come off of a streak where we have effectively been, giving him some credit for the way he's played, which was much different than how things had been basically for the first 50 games of the season. As we've got the caller on the line there, who do we got, and do you agree with thoughts on Morgan Rielly and how he's played, and that fact that he deserves some praise for what's been going on with his game here lately?
Zach, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey Zach, sorry about that. I was connected to my Bluetooth there. Sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. We got you here now. How's it going? How you feeling after this game tonight?
Well, honestly, it wasn't a bad loss tonight. We still got 3 wins out of the four. A lot of positive things, especially tonight with all the speculations about the Leafs and heavy talks with the Flyers. And
Yeah.
Fraser Minton has missed the last 2 games. He is not injured. And Flyers scout has been looking into Fraser Minton. So I'm
Yep.
curious on your take. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, who do I have here on the line?
Sorry, Zach. It's Eric Martin.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hey, Eric. How's it going? Yeah. I mean, look, this is something that came up earlier today, and I was thinking about it. The Fraser Minton thing is interesting to me because I think it is dependent on how soon you feel like Minton could be playing in your lineup. And even if it's not this year, if you think he's going to be a full time NHL player by next year, I don't know how excited I am to make that kind of trade. If you think he's maybe like 2 years away, or next year he's still a part time guy and it's not until after that, then okay, maybe it starts to become more of a conversation. Maybe it starts to become something that I would actually start to consider more frequently, especially in a deal with like a guy like Scott Lawton. I mean, I think he would fit in here well. I think he's tenacious. I think he's a solid player who would fit in real well in your bottom six there, probably as like your 3C. The only thing that I kind of have seen that would concern me a bit, which I think people in Toronto should be aware of, is John Tortorella has talked about Scott Lawton and said that he feels like he's more comfortable with him being a winger than a center. But, it's a situation like looking at trading prospects where maybe I look at Easton Cowan more than Fraser Minton because I feel like Easton Cowan's further away. I'm not saying like that's the case, but maybe you look at someone you personally feel like is further away from being here with this team. And the reason I say this, just to kind of clarify to people out there who might be wondering, like, why would you say, these prospects who are going to be coming down the road? Well, the reality is John Tavares' contract is up at the end of the summer. Mitch Marner's contract is up at the end of the summer. You're going to have some decisions to make about, do you want to pay these guys? Do you want to run it back? Like, do you want to let them walk? What is it that you want to be doing here with these players as you continue to move through? And then who are the guys that are filling in? So maybe your window is not closing per se, but maybe you want to try to take advantage as much as possible with the window that you currently have and what you have available to you at the current moment in time. And I mean, looking at a guy like Scott Lawton, by the way, Scott Lawton is 30 years old. He's got another year on his deal after this, and he's from around here. He is $3 million per year until 25, 26. Like, that's a pretty cheap contract that you could bring in here very easily and slot into a bottom six role and have him be a difference maker. He's also the type of guy who is physical, a bit feisty. He's got a mean side to him. Like, he's a guy that you could very easily see being a playoff player, a guy who could make a difference. Right now, he's in there in the second line in Philly. You could kind of lower his workload and say, hey, you can
Yeah.
go out there and battle against other players. I don't know if that answers your question or if you're on the same page as me there on that as well.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. Zach, one thing I want to mention there, Nick Alberga mentioned a couple of weeks ago you guys play on the same team. Is that correct for pickup hockey?
He's had me out a few times. I don't play on his team, but I've gone and played with him. Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
said on stream there you're pretty good on the face off. Is can you relate to that or
Yeah, I think I'm not bad. Face-offs was kind of like one of my specialties when I was playing. I think I got pretty good at it. I just get real low, get a low grip on the stick, and then as it goes in, I just got a fast twitch so I can get in there fast.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. You guys all chat together and stream all together. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Going
fun.
back to the Leafs, like you said about time. I think that time is honestly this year because we don't know. We all have speculations about Marner coming back, right? The cap's going up. He might be getting a bit more than Matthews. Matthews only signed for 4 years, so in 4 years from now he can get more because the cap's going to go up. We honestly don't know what's going on with Marner or Tavares. So with the heavy talks that's been going on tonight with Scott Lawton and speculations, it's like either David Camp or you get Holmberg going in. Like the rumors are, they're not asking for a first round, which the Leafs don't have a first round this year. So in my mind, like I know there's a lot of speculations about Braden Shen or Dylan Cousin, but other teams have more to offer than the Leafs than for Dylan Cousin. Like other teams have first round picks and whatnot. The Leafs don't have that until next year. So for me, honestly, I think it would be a good trade if we can get that player. I'm not sure what your input is on that, but I think we should pull the trigger on that. And not sure about Connor Murphy as well. I know we've been linked to them, but they've been talking about retained salary, but they're already retaining 50% of Mikko Rantanen for this year, so that's a no go. Not sure what your take is on that, Zach.
I mean, looking around at like some of the options that has been brought up here about who you could be pursuing. Some of the guys that I would have up there on the list is just players with term. One thing people should know and remember in all of this when you're talking about, okay, do you go out and acquire a Dylan Cousins and be like, oh, Buffalo will retain and have to do that? Well, what like where is that? Like, that's a long time for Buffalo to have to retain on a contract like that.
Yeah,
Also, remember with
honest.
Braden Shen, it's an expensive contract, so you're gonna have to have money in, money out. Like there are pieces that are involved in some of this that you can't just like go and get these people. Like you have to have somebody go out. Who is that piece? And you have to remember that these teams, when they're making these trades, they're not all interested in the garbage that you have to offer. Not every team is sitting around looking and going, you know what? I wanna trade Braden Shen for David Kampf and Ryan Reeves. Like that's
Yeah,
not the kind of trades that those teams are gonna be looking to make.
no, but with the Blues, they are in a position, I believe, to retain salary. So we
Yeah,
know Shen. Imagine having both Luke and Brandon on the Leafs. How tough this team would be in the playoffs.
I know. I
Wouldn't
I
that
know.
be ridiculous?
Yes. I
And
know.
like with all that's been going on the last couple of weeks with Dylan Cousin, I know the Leafs are interested, but at the end of the day, like the Buffalo Sabres are going to go with the highest bidder. The Leafs don't have a first round pick to offer. Like they would have if like I don't even think the Buffalo would retain any salary. So the Leafs would honestly have to get rid of someone like a Domi, which he does have, I believe, like a 19 no trade team. So I doubt him coming to Toronto. He would want to go play to Buffalo afterwards. But again, we don't know. I don't think Buffalo would want to make a trade with Toronto just because normally in the same conference it doesn't happen like that. And for
Yeah.
Dylan Cousin, it would be nice because Tavares is getting up there in age. So Tavares, I do see the future of him signing with us. 5 mil or maybe $6 million, maybe a bit higher because the cap's going up. But I think he'd be a good third line center for us. Like he's been awesome second line center for us. I would see him a good third line center like O'Reilly was the last couple of years for us. What was it, 2 years ago? So the Leafs, they've been in talks of having a second line center that they were looking because the price of a third line center is almost the same as a second line center. So that's why they've been linked of having either Fraser Minton or Easton Cowan as a potential trade for prospect to get a second line center. Because third line center right now, even for Brock Nelson, they're still in a race right now. So he's
Yeah.
looking maybe to having, to re-sign with the Islanders. Who knows? But at his age, maybe we want to look at someone a bit younger. If Buffalo is willing to retain a bit of that 7.1 from Cousin, then yeah, we're in good shape. or even Donato from Chicago. Like that's we're in heavy talks with them as well. But as it stands right now, I do believe that you know our third line center is we're linked to a couple of teams. I'm not sure like who you believe is the highest on our trade board, but I think we need a third line center and maybe a winger and a defenseman. Like, what's your take on that, Zach?
I mean, at this point, I think looking at second line center doesn't make sense to me. That's honestly, like second line center to go and trade for a guy like that is just not something I'm willing to do. John Tavares has been very good. Yeah, he's like a little slower right now, but he's gonna go get a 2 week break. I'm sure they're gonna be able to manage workload down the stretch. Even when JT hasn't been quote unquote hot, he's been a guy who's been pretty reliable. At least he's out there not being a net negative to the team. He was struggling at the beginning of the season, but I think from that point he's picked it up. So I mean, the conversation about going out and getting a second line center to me is like, why? I just keep looking around saying, who's the guy that's better than John Tavares that you're getting for that price? Brock Nelson, personally, I just don't have the interest in. He's expensive. He's a pending UFA. I don't know why. I don't know why the Islanders are so interested in re-signing him and are willing to move on from Noah Dobson. That kind of just doesn't make sense to me there either. But yeah, I don't know. Like, Mike Batson points out, Lawton is only a real 2C option, viable other than O'Reilly. It's just like, look around. Who's the guy that you're getting that's at 2C who's going to be better than John Tavares right now? Like, I think he's been good. He also seems to be a guy who finds a way to step up in the playoffs and have an impact. So, like, why? Why? Why go out there and do that when you could probably find a guy in free agency if that's the direction you want to go? Or
But
find a guy at
that's
the draft that you want to trade for and do it that way. Like right now, you've got a guy who's good enough at 2C, and you can find someone else to be a really good 3C.
but that's the thing, Zach. Like this year is technically our last year. If we're looking at the contracts, Mitch Marner's is the last year.
But I don't
John
think it's the
Tavares.
last year though. I mean, I know their contracts are coming up, but John Tavares wants to stay in Toronto. And we saw reports earlier today that there was conversations that maybe he would sign or be around a $7 million AAV. It's been reported that Mitch Marner wants to stay in Toronto, and they'd be willing to have that conversation with him about extending as well. Like, I don't think it's the last year. You've got Nylander, Matthews, you've got Stolar. This is the first time you're looking around, and a lot of these guys actually are here for a couple more years. It's not like you're having half the team turning over at the end of the season.
No, so let me rephrase that, Zach. So we have about, if you agree with me, we have about 2 years for a cup window with OEL and Tanev. They're kind of in their prime right now, but in 2 years from now, they're getting up there in age. Do you agree?
Yeah, they're getting up there in age, but it doesn't mean they can't continue to contribute through their later years, or that they could be
No.
replaced, or maybe they find another role within the team and they get bumped down or something.
So I'm not necessarily saying replace, but
Yeah.
again, we do want, John Tavares to re-sign with us. That's like 100%. I want that to happen, but we don't know what goes on. As far as we know, as of this day, Marner does not have a contract. He does not have an extension.
Mhm.
Neither does Tavares. Neither does Matthews. Or sorry, like Matthew Nyes. We don't know what's going on. So it's also Brandon Shanahan's last year as his tenure of about 10 years with the president, as the president. So if you agree with me, if he does not make it through the first round playoff this year, do you agree that he is losing his job?
I feel like at the end of this year, if it's not some form of success, then yes, there's likely going to be changes made here within the group. President,
So
players on the team, whatever it may be.
So would you not agree that if put yourself in his shoes, and I think we talked about this last time I was on with you, that in his last year, whether, if he doesn't do any moves, he goes through the first round, they don't make it, he's fired. So why not try to go big, either get a second line center or a good third line center with term, because I would not trade a prospects with someone who's a rental, get someone who's with term and
But
try
but
to
who
make
is that guy? Like,
something.
I don't know that there's a 2C out there that's available or like on the trade block right now that is like That's the guy you
So
need to go and get. Like, I don't think that there is a 2C out there that's worthy of going and doing that. Maybe Scott Lawton
so
is the guy who
yeah.
could compete with it, but I don't think he's definitively a 2C. John Tavares is the 2C to me right now, and I don't think that there's many guys out there who are better than John Tavares and what he's doing right now.
So because I find that the price of a third line center right now in the market is the same thing as a second line center, that the Leafs are trying to get a second line center, which I don't believe it's going to be a Ryan O'Reilly. It's not going to be a Scott Lawton. If they're going to trade a prospect, or like, I don't think it's going to be an Easton Cowan because he's hasn't developed yet. Fraser Mint has been in the Marlies. He's been in the NHL, and the Flyers scouts has been monitoring him. So if anyone's going to get traded as a prospect, I do believe it's going to be Fraser Minton because he has NHL experience and he is young. Yes, Scott Laughton is up there in age, but I would not trade a prospect for Scott Laughton. If I'm trading a prospect, it's going to be someone with long term. The cap's going to go up, Zach. Remember that.
I know,
And
but you have to fit that cap
uh,
in this year. That's part of the problem with all this.
yeah, but it's not a full year though. It's at the end of the year. So just because say Cousin, they traded prospect, well the Leafs aren't paying $7.1 million on Cousin. Like 3/4 of the year his salary's already been paid for. So the Leafs aren't paying like the full salary for that year. And
I
if
know, but you get hit with
the buff
AAV is part of the problem. You do get hit with the AAV, so you need to find a way around that. It's not so much about the money. MLSE has the money.
So it all depends also what's going to go on with Marner because the cap is going up. So if the cap is going up next year. So that second line center, say if it's Cousin, that $7.1 million is going to look very brilliant next year when the cap goes up. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think it would look fine. I mean, I have no problem trading for Cousins. Like I'm not disagreeing with you on that at all. Like I'm not gonna fight you on that. I'm not gonna disagree. I like Cousins. I talked with Nick about it. I think he's a guy that makes sense, but I don't know that he's a guy that you're able to obtain here during the season. I think the price might be more expensive because you get an additional playoff run with him. All that stuff. Like it's hard and it's the AAV is what you have to deal with, that you have to
Yeah.
remember. And I know that the cap goes up after the fact, and I'm not dismissing that stuff, but look at what you're at right now. Like, and the other thing too that I just disagree with you on here, Eric. I'm sorry, I can't like get to where you're at on this one, is that who's the 2C? You know, like I pull up the TSN trade bait board that they've got updated. The number one trade list person on this board is Brock Nelson, who's 33 years old. His cap hit is $6 million. He's a center. Guess what? He's not playing ahead of John Tavares on my list. The next center that's available is Trent Frederick. He's not playing in my 2C. Like, maybe if you're looking for a cheaper option and you're looking at a guy like Scott Laughton and maybe it's not going to work for you, maybe the other guy that you go with, and he's a UFA at the end of the season, is Trent Frederick. Maybe you go and try to find it that way. But guess what? Again, Eric, not passing John Tavares. Like, looking down this list, there's no one here really that's passing it. Nick Bukestad, no. Braden Shen, no. Ryan Donato, no. Jake Evans, no. Ryan Strome, no. Ryan O'Reilly is the only kind of guy that you could maybe get to as being a guy who passes him. Otherwise, there's not a guy on this list that's available for trade that I look at definitively and say he's a better option. You'd have to go and find somebody who's not listed right now and no one in the world is thinking of or looking at or anything, because there's no one out there right now, honestly, Eric, that I'm looking at and saying that guy's better than John Tavares or would do a better job at 2C than what John Tavares does.
So I agree, Zach. So let me rephrase this. I'm not saying, say if we sign Dylan Cousin, I'm not saying he's taking over second
Yes.
seed this year. John Tavares does have, I think, like our cup window, Zach, is, I'm saying it's 2 years. I'm saying it's this year because it's the last year of Marner and JT's contract. So that's why I'm saying go big. It's the president's last year. Use a prospect to go get a second seed because in 2 years from now, say if they get Dylan Cousin,
But you're
I
saying
think
you're saying
he
a 2C for years from now, not this season.
yes, because if they're gonna go spend the money on a 3C or a prospect on a rental, that's a waste. I don't think Tree Living would do that. But say if you go get Cousin, you put him at 3C for this year. Obviously, I would keep John Tavares hands down. He's been having an awesome year. You keep him at a 3C for Dylan Cousins. So in next year or the year after, like we still have him until I think 2030, I believe. So by that time, like John Tavares is going to have age. So you have a 23, 24-year-old cousin who has term that can slot in to that second role after, next year or the year after. I'm not saying whoever they go get this year, as long as it's not a rental, like if they're using a prospect, they better not use it as a rental. Like if they go get like New York Islanders, Brock Nelson, like he's at the end of his term this year. So if they use a prospect for a rental, that's stupid. Unless there's an extension in place, then I'm fine for that as a 3C. But I agree with you. Like John Tavares is a second line center this year. He's been playing great. Him and Willie, especially, like on the same line with McMahon. I know,
Yeah.
like tonight they kind of changed it up with Pacioretty and Marner. Like they moved things around. It's just one of those nights. Like they still got 3 games out of 4.
Yeah.
But if I'm the Leafs, like I don't think I would get Cousin. Like their cup window is this year or next year. So I'm looking like, you're going to go get Luke Shen on a defense and maybe even get Braden Shen or Donato. Like I know it's hard for Chicago to retain because they're already retaining Mikko Rantanen, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at those 2 guys because I'm looking at the Leafs not in the future. I'm looking at the next 2 years because the decor of this Leaf has been the best decor we've had in the Matthew era, and they got about 2 to 3 years before their prime. They're getting older. They're getting in the Brent Burns and the Drew Doughty age. So I'm looking at next 2 years. So Braden Shen, I think he's 32 or yeah, I think he's 31 or 32. He's got 2 more years. That would be an awesome third line center. Ryan Donato, same thing. That's what I'm looking at in the next 2 years. It's hard to think about the future because of the core we got right now. It's either this year or next year. Not sure if you agree or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a 2-year window. I think you've got longer, but I understand what you're saying. Like, you'd want to get the ball rolling sooner than later. I mean, that's kind of how it's been for a long time with these guys. And, I get people getting all pissed off. Like, one guy who's always mad about everything, comes back all the time, is, Jeffrey Curry comes here and he's like, why would you trade for players? Like, you're getting rid of picks and stuff. And it's like, well, this team is close. Like, you can see that they're a very good team in the regular season. You're trying to acquire players and make sure and push yourself to be able to get yourself in a position to have success in the playoffs. Like, it is what it is. That's why you have to keep trying to make trades and trying to get people and get stuff, because we look at, the mentality of these guys, and you hope that at some point it breaks through. Maybe it doesn't, but it's like, I'm just going to fight with that every single time. Like, that guy Jeffrey comes here and he wants to cry about it and say, why did Dubas trade for this and this and this? And it's like, those were all good trades and we were all fired up about them at the time. They just didn't work out. And by the way, there was nothing wrong with the trades. The guys who seemed to not follow through each time was the core. Now, when you kind of look at it going forward and say, okay, how do we kind of build off of this? I mean, again, here tonight, it's playoff hockey, and it seems like those guys didn't find a way to show up here, or like in a tighter defensive game with no time, no space, like they weren't able to get it done. But I mean, yeah, Eric, I look at that and I say, yes, I'm willing to go and trade and try to add people. Like, you have to keep trying to push and improve and to get yourself into a better position for playoffs. But when you look at this, Eric, I'll put this back on you. You keep bringing up Buffalo and Cousins, and that's a guy that we've looked at. But the problem that I have, especially during the season, is, okay, who do you trade? Like tell me honestly, what is their trade package that Buffalo calls you tomorrow and says, we're willing to trade you Dylan Cousins? We want this, this, and this. Who are those pieces that they're giving? Who are you willing to send? Like, how does that go? And also, while Eric answers this question, we hit 50 likes on the stream, so I'm going to hit the smelling salts here. If we get to 100, we'll do it as well. I also, on top of that, I'm just going to throw out, while I'm in this break here and letting Eric think about this one as I tee him up and get his thoughts on who you would trade. We did get another super chat here. This super chat comes from Samurai. Samurai, thank you for the super chat. It says, for the kids. Samurai. Sam Murray. I don't know. I forget every time how Sam wants his name said, but appreciate the super chat for the kids. Proceeds go to Sick Kids Charity. If we get 9 more super chats here on the show tonight, we do the smelling salts again. Get us to 100. We do it again. We've got 50 here. Let's go to you, Eric, on that one. I want to get your thoughts and how you feel about this. Like, who do you trade? Because people in the chat, we're looking around. The Carolina Hurricanes just traded traded for Mikko fucking Rantanen. Colorado moved on from him. They previously moved on from Tyson Barrie, who was a guy that was beloved in the city and a top defenseman there. People get traded. It happens. Look at the NBA. Luka Doncic got traded, and yet us in Toronto, we can't seem to wrap our heads around the idea of moving on from Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton, because, we're worried about, we love these guys and what they've been as prospects and the idea of them. At some point here, you're going to have to go and make a trade, and you want to make a splash, you want to improve your team, people might have to go. The last thing I want to get your thoughts on here before I let you go and finish out the show here tonight, who do you trade? Buffalo calls, who do you trade? Let's go to the smelling salts as well.
Yeah, let's hit that smelling salt before I get to it there, Zach. So if Buffalo, it all depends what Buffalo wants. Like they're holding the cards in hands. But if Buffalo calls me and I'm tree living, so Cousin has a $7.1 million cap hit, correct?
I think it's just 7, but yeah, still.
So I'm looking at someone who just signed with the Leafs last year. He was on a one-year term. He signed over a $4 million contract. I'm looking at Domi. Hasn't really had a great year. So that's a guy that I would be willing to trade. Again, he does have a 19
But do you think Buffalo would want that? Like, I don't think that they would. I'll stop you right there on that, because I don't think Buffalo would want that. The other thing is, I don't think Domi would want to go and do that either. He knows Toronto's going on a cup run.
So it depends, again, what's on his no trade clause.
You were right. Cousins is 7.1. Sorry.
So, yeah. So if Buffalo does want, Domi, which is just shy over, $4 million, and you put in, say, a prospect, because Cousin is young and he does have term, I would be willing to give a prospect like Minton for the guy. That's over $4 million. So you're almost halfway to Cousins, salary, and you do have Hawk and Paw and LTIR, which is almost another $2 million. If you move like Holmberg or Ryan Reeves, put them on waivers, like it's doable. It's doable to make room for money for Cousin. It all depends what the Sabres want for Cousin. If they want a Fraser Minton, that's fine. But the Leafs don't have a first round pick. And I'm not saying like Dylan Cousin is a first round pick, but the Leafs do hold a first round pick for 2026. And I think they do have a second round pick. But I know like the rumors were that they would trade like a Camp, a Robertson, and a second round pick for Cousins. But I'm not sure. Like if I'm the manager, like that's what I'm doing. Like I'm getting rid. If it's for long term, like 2030 for Dylan Cousin, he's young, he has term, he has lots of points, and he plays for like a shitty team. Yeah, put him on a line with, maybe not this year, because you got Tavares, but next year with like Willie and Bobby McMahon, like holy jeez, Zach, like that's going to be a good deal, and the cap is going up, and you got this second line center for 7.1. Tavares is at like over $11 million. So would that not be a good deal, considering that we only have like kind of 2 years to try to win a cup here?
I know. Like, again, agree with you, but and Nick and I did a video about it the other day when these rumors came out talking about Dylan Cousins and the Leafs being interested in him. It's the same thing, and it's the same thing I'll bring up to you here, and same conversation we had, and it was Nick who brought up the point, and I agree with them completely. Yeah, I would like to pursue him right now, but I mean, the guys you just named there, Eric, truthfully, like, they're not going to be, they're just not going to be in that package. Holmberg, Reeves, Kampf, Dewar, Domi, they're not going to be in that package. Domi's no trade list or whatever it is that he's got. I don't know for certain, but I would be almost very, 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 very confident that Buffalo would be on that list. I can't imagine he would want to go there. Or if he's got an opportunity to submit a list, I'm pretty sure the Sabres would be one of those teams that he would say, I ain't playing there. I ain't getting moved there. Not from Toronto. Not when I've just signed finally a deal with term. And also the other thing that I would kind of counter on this at is like when you've got a guy like Domi and he's making basically pennies and we're talking about this cap going up, like who fucking cares? Maybe you can find him a spot on your fourth line. Again, it just like goes to, I think it's really hard to make that trade during the season here right now. I think you'll have to end up looking ahead to the summer if that's going to be the case. And maybe someone else goes out there and acquires Dylan Cousins before you can get to the summer. But, you know, if it's going to be that way, maybe they just end up having to overpay because it is during the season. You get an extra run out of the guy. You get an extra season, you know. This might be more of like go and get a Lawton, go and get a Trent Frederick, go get Brandon Tanev, Yanni Gourde, like those guys who make your third lines better. You've got enough talent, and if you don't, the other thing too, by the way, to throw into all this, if you don't have enough talent in your top four or your top six with the four guys that you have there, you've got a whole other fucking problem on your hands, just in case anybody else was wondering. Because JT makes $11 million. Marner, Nylander, and Matthews are all making, you know, boatloads of money there as well. Your whole cap's tied up. If you don't have enough talent between those guys, and then you look around and you've got, Matthew Knies, who's playing really well. Bobby McMahon playing really well. Max Pacioretty, who can find, if he can find a rhythm, plays really well in that top six as well. If you don't have those guys going, you have a bigger issue at hand than anything else. Like you need to stop having this conversation about fixing the top six here. It's got to be finding ways to go into the third and the fourth lines and fixing those and getting some type of life. Domi is a good player in the playoffs. He's a guy who brings it. He's a guy who brings intensity, energy. He brings fire. Like he is engaged constantly. He's a guy that maybe I would look at and have remain here no matter what. But to me, it's just looking elsewhere. And then Dylan Cousins trade, unless Buffalo calls you and gives you some stupid fucking offer that you're like, I have to take this. They're like, we'll take Villeneuve and Steves, and which will never happen, by the way. But they call and say that. I'm hanging up the phone and saying, yep, done. Send the papers. Like, you know, those deals that people are talking about when you look at, Holmberg, Kampf, Domi, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, sure, I'm making that trade easy, but this is not easy mode in NHL be a GM. It's just not. It's really difficult to do. And, I mean, kind of looking around at the options that are out there, I think you kind of start to dial in on Lawton, Fredericks, Tanevs, Gourds, those kinds of guys. You're not going to have to pay too much on them. Some of them are UFAs, which decreases price as well. And then that's kind of the look that you go at there. I don't know, Eric, do you have any other points here before I let you go tonight? Did we lose Eric? We might have lost Eric. His audio might have connected to his Bluetooth. Eric, do I got you? Eric? We might have lost him, ladies and gentlemen. We might have lost Eric. I don't know what's happened there. If he comes back, he comes back. But I mean, otherwise, we'll probably get to a point here. Oh, there you go, Eric. Yeah. Any final thoughts from you?
Sorry. Freaking technology. Yeah. So if I'm the manager, like I'm probably gonna go towards, you know, Yanni Gourde. He's injured right now. Brandon Tanev would be nice because he's a big penalty killer. But at the end of the day, if I'm trading, not a prospect, but if we're getting rid of players like Holmberg, Robertson, and, you know, maybe a second round pick for next year, I'll go with Scott Lawton. It makes more sense for the lease window, which is like, you know, 2 to 3 years, like we talked about. But this year is the year. Like, we got a hot goalie tandem right now. Our D-cord is awesome. You know, if we can tune it up with either bringing Luke Shen or whatever defenseman we bring over to help out Morgan Riley, that's our position this year, I believe.
Yeah. I think that's probably what they try to look at. I mean, upgrading a 5'6" is probably best. Maybe bringing in both Shen brothers would be pretty sick. But
Wow.
yeah, like looking at Luke Shen and a reunion of him here in Toronto, I think is probably feasible. I think would make sense. Like that's kind of an area I'd look at. You can play with Riley. You put OEL down to your 5'6". Now all of a sudden your defense is even better just because you've got a guy who plays consistently with Morgan Riley, which makes Morgan Riley better. So somehow in all that trade, it's like you get Luke Shen, who is bringing you a baseline of something, but he makes someone else better, which adds more to your trade, which pushes OEL to a 5'6", which makes your 5'6" better. Blah, 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 blah. You push down the
Yeah.
line, it's a domino effect as it goes along. The other thing would be, you look at a depth forward. Hey, it bumps guys out of the lineup. It bumps maybe a Holmberg out, which is addition by subtraction on its own. Yeah, it
I'm
makes
fine
your
with that.
third line better because, Trent Frederick and Bobby McMahon together is better than Bobby McMahon and Pontus Holmberg. Like, it's
Yeah.
just the truth. He's in, he's out. He's like basically just a vanilla player. He's Jimmy Vesey of the modern day Maple Leafs. And an upgrade on him just makes his line mates better as well.
Yeah, so I don't think that like Boston, because they're fighting for a playoff spot right now, but I don't think they're gonna help out the same team in their conference to give them a third line center. That's not gonna happen. That the Leafs are gonna make a trade with Boston. Um,
I mean,
if,
I
if
wouldn't I wouldn't be surprised. Like I know people talk about this in the in division trades and stuff now. I think it's far more common and far more comfortable for teams and players and stuff to do. The hatred is not there the same way between GMs and players as it used to be. I think we might have lost Eric again. Oh,
no,
he's back.
sorry, do you hear me? Sorry,
Yep.
I keep canceling my camera there. I don't know why it's cutting my mute, but
You're good.
at the end of the day, Zach, like I think the Leafs, if I don't know, I think if they're gonna go spend big money because third centers are almost the same price as a second line center, then yeah, get rid of Fraser Minton for a second line center, say like Cousin, but I wouldn't get rid of Minton or Cowan for like a Scott Lawton or someone who's up there in age. Um, but again, like it's the Leafs like last 2 years to do something. Like this year is the last year. We don't know where Martner's going next year. We don't know where Tavares is going
Yeah.
next year. Matthew Nyes doesn't have a contract next year. We don't know. So is this the year that they go all out? Tree Living is known to make big trades. There's heavy talks tonight with the Leafs and the Flyers. Their scouts been looking at Fraser Minton. I think I'm fine if they go get Scott Lawton as a third line center, even though like they only have 2 years left, both him and Tavares. Like they're both similar in age. I think I'd be fine for that for this year and next year. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I I think that there's options out there. I think that the ones that we've kind of outlined are probably best. And I mean, and
Yeah.
looking at what McMurder there said in the chat, which I would excuse me, which I would agree with, is like we're talking about a trade with Buffalo, and then we're saying Boston wouldn't make a trade because they're in the same division. Well, Buffalo's also in the same division, and looking around, I think both teams would be willing to make trades with Toronto. We saw the Habs and the Leafs make a trade together.
They're
It's not
also
like it's out
really
of
out of the
the realm of
playoffs there,
possibility.
Zach, though. That's
I
the
know,
thing.
I know. But Boston is looking around at UFA and they're looking at
Yeah.
themselves out of a playoff spot right now. Like, if they can flip that piece and get something back that they can flip elsewhere and get another piece to bring in, then it changes the look of their team as well. So, there's a lot that goes into it. Eric, thank you for calling in here tonight. I do appreciate it. I appreciate the conversation, and I think the chat got some entertainment at least out of this one here, talking about how we could be looking at everything as we approach the trade deadline. So thanks, Eric, for calling in. Appreciate it as always, and look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thanks, Zach. Until next time, buddy.
There you go. There's Eric calling in here to the show tonight to give his thoughts on everything Maple Leafs and looking ahead to the trade deadline. McMurder Sports Update. Yes, no problem for the shout out. I mean, it's a good point that you're brought up there with looking at the Possible trades. Yeah, Buffalo. Okay. Well, everyone's talking about let's trade for Cousins. Let's trade for Cousins. Well, I don't think it makes sense to then turn around and have the conversation that you wouldn't trade with Boston because they're in the division. Well, Buffalo's also in the division. I mean, we talked a lot about the game here tonight. This has been a longer stream. I think we had Eric on for like 35 minutes there. That was a while. A big conversation about trades and deadline and all that kind of stuff. Kind of got away from where we were at on the game, but I do think I kind of touched on everything I needed to with tonight's game. One thing I haven't touched on the stream here tonight before we get to our final segments is the trip to Nashville. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. You've been watching the show here for a while, whether it's the morning take or the after dark show. Leafs Nation is heading on our very own Nation vacation. That will be down to Nashville March 20th to 23rd. Make sure to head on over to nationgear.ca to get your tickets. You don't want to miss it, whether you're looking for flight packages, non-flight packages. We've got it all. Jay Rosehill, Nick Alberga, Carter Hutton, all the boys will be down there for the weekend to take in a Leafs Preds game. Head out to Carter Hutton's Love and Exile Wine Bar, live podcasts as well on top of that. Just hanging out with Jay Rosehill. I think that's the most important thing in all of this. So make sure to check that out. Make sure to head on over to nationgear.ca so you don't miss your chance on a trip of a lifetime. Let's play the animation here, and it's probably not going to work right away, so be prepared as I go into the abyss of a white screen. There it is. Thanks for sticking with me as we figure our way through the white screen that we get stuck in there. So thank you very much. Let's get to our final couple of segments as we go to wrap up the show here tonight. I think that there is a couple segments to get to. I mean, we talked about the game. I'm not really frustrated with this one. I think that there's some bigger picture stuff that comes to light when it comes to this game, this conversation, this team here tonight. It's all kind of bubbles up to like, well, yeah, you struggled to score. Yeah, your power play dropped off. Yeah, your penalty kill wasn't that great. Like, all of these things are all building and building and building. So they concern me long term. As of right now, you head into the break. You've won 3 of your last 4. You lost 2-1. Whatever. Let's go to our final couple of segments. Let's start with the play of the game. Play of the game tonight. Play of the game for me. Joseph Woll was pretty dialed. There is a sneaky play of the game that took place. I don't know if people saw it. And also, if it wasn't for the penalty that he took right after, the chase down by OEL on Kiefer Sherwood that broke up that play where he had the little bit of a break would have been very high on the list of play of the games here tonight. To put an end to that chance that Sherwood had, that would have been like a half break. The hustle back, the wherewithal to not take a penalty on that one, which he then obviously takes a penalty on after the fact, but whatever, it is what it is. We move forward. Yeah, the save on Matthews is pretty high up there, obviously just in terms of overall entertainment, not from a Leafs perspective, but play of the game I think is going to go to the Joseph Woll spread. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it was, I think, late in the third period. There was a deflected shot near the side of the net that Joseph Woll gets across and basically has to flail out on to make a save. And he makes a toe save to break it up. That could have made it... That could have just killed everything right then and there if that goal goes in and it gets past Woll, because it would have been a sleepy one. It would have been one he won it back. It would have been kind of a killer to the team looking around going, how the hell did that just happen? You know, there's different things that kind of crush your momentum. Obviously, the Boeser goal stunk, but, you know, it was a good goal. It was a power play goal. You wish OEL didn't take that penalty, but if that goal goes in on Woll, that's kind of lucky and just sneaks past him and he wasn't prepared for it or whatever you want to say, I think it kind of looks around and it's a little bit deflating. You're like, oh, we've been fighting this one. We're in a tight game. And then that goes in. And as good as he's been, I don't think anybody blames him. But, it's like an emotional letdown where you watch that happen. You go, shit, that one beat us. That stinks. It's a sharp save. Like, he was pretty on the ball here tonight. I thought he looked pretty good. I thought he was making some good saves. He had some pretty solid rebound control. Unfortunate that you lose this one the way that you did. The power play goal by Vancouver off the shitty penalty that OEL took is a complete dagger. But outside of that, I mean, you battled back. You were never fully out of it. It was a tight game. Morgan Rielly looks like he's got some momentum, some mojo coming back here. Like, those are positives. I never want to see Nylander, Tavares, Marner line again. Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the game. I am gassed. The stream went way longer than I thought. I mean, it is the last one before the 2-week break. I'm not going to see you guys for a little bit, so give you a little something extra. Keep hitting the like button as well if you haven't already. Let's get it to here. Our best bet segment, and our best bet segment is presented by Bet365, proud partner of the Leaf Station pregame and the Leaf Station after dark. Open an account at Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION, NATION, all caps, NATION, NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Unfortunately, just like the Maple Leafs, we could not go into the break with a victory. I wish we could have. It is a frustrating thing to have happen here, and probably the last time I will do this. But I thought the number was good. I thought we were primed for a good spot to cash and, continue rolling, get ourselves up over 8.5 units on the season. It's not the case. We're now down to 6.93 units that we are up on the year. We were at 7.2, but we bet on Max Domi anytime goal. I thought he was going to come through. I thought he was going to find a way to get on the board. He doesn't. It's a sad day. It's a bad day. We lose a bet. Just like the Leafs go into the Four Nations with a loss. We also go in with a loss. Unfortunate, but it is what it is. I thought he looked okay through the beginning. I thought he was going to continue to build what he had, and he gets yanked from that one. Sad. We are now 3 for 4 in our last 4 here, 3 for 5 in our last 5. We are at a 21-37 record on the season, but we are profiting $695 on the year. Zach's betting percentage is looking like a decent MLB player's average. Well, that's fair. That said, I'm mashing home runs because we're up $695 of profit. Let's get out of here with our final segment of the night, and let's do our grades of the game. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched, subscribed, liked, commented, super chatted, all that good stuff. Thank you guys. Keep liking, keep subscribing. Don't stop that. Leaf Station 401 right here on YouTube. Let's get our grades in the chat. I'm trying to think about what my grade of the game is going to be here tonight. I feel like tonight's grade is like a B- area. If anybody in the chat disagrees and has a different feeling on it, feel free to let me know. I mean, like C+ maybe is a better kind of number on this one or letter on this one to put at. You outshot the Canucks. You were right there with them in the hitting battle. You dominated the face-off circle. It's your special teams. You go 0 for 2. You let up a power play goal, which allows you to have a 1 for 2 penalty kill on the night. I mean, box score-wise, it's like pretty pretty even. Like, you didn't get blown out or anything. I thought you kind of got your teeth kicked in a little bit in the first period. You turned that around in the second and the third. But look at the deserve to win meter. I mean, you pull that one up and you see what you've got sitting there for over on Money Puck right now, and it's not pretty. I think a lot of that does come from what you were seeing in the first period, obviously, as I kind of mentioned there. Deserve to win meter 82.7% for the Canucks, 17.3% for the Leafs. It wasn't the greatest night. Nylander gets a breakaway and is like fumbling the puck. Marner, the puck looked a little choppy on his stick here tonight too. Not pretty. I think C+, like, you hung in there. I want to see more offense created. I want to see you scoring more goals. I want to see tighter defensive game, I guess, is kind of one of the bigger things here as well. You gave up 5.15 expected goals tonight, and they only scored 2. Joseph Woll was really good, and he's not even going to get as much credit for it as he should. He gets a .920 save percentage, and that somehow feels low for the night that he had. You missed a couple tying goals, but I don't think you played that great. I see there Wormcasting missed a tying goal by a couple inches. You did, but I also just don't think you played that great. Going through the motions, probably a good way to describe it. C+, I think, is my final grade. That's going to do it for me here on the show tonight. It'll be a little while till I see you guys again. I appreciate you all for watching. Make sure to hit that, like button on the way out. Subscribe to the channel, Leaf Station 401. Thanks for the continued support. Thanks to everyone showing up. This is going to be an interesting couple of weeks here with the Four Nations. I'm kind of excited about it, but also kind of like, I don't know how much I care. It is international hockey, so I don't want to take it for granted because it's been a long time since we've seen best on best in international play. This is another opportunity to get that here tonight, so like that's a positive. And if you do want to see me, you want to see Alberga, February 15th at Greta Bar YYZ, make sure to check it out. If you're across Canada, you can also check out Vancouver location, Edmonton location. They'll also be doing watch parties for the Four Nations as well. And yeah, if you do want to see me talking hockey and talking Four Nations, you can find me on the sheet with Jeff Merrick on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel, Monday to Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going on there. We're talking about hockey, breaking down the Four Nations tournament, stories going around. Maybe there's some trades bubbling up over the next couple of weeks that we can dig into as well. And Wednesday, I will be stepping in and hosting for Nick Alberg on the morning show. So thanks so much to everyone who tuned in here today. This has been also 6 1/3 Sweden will win. I bet on Sweden. Also, I'll throw this out there quickly to everybody. I bet on Sweden to win the tournament. I bet on Sweden to get 9 or more points in the tournament in the round robin because I think it's 3 points per win. You have to win in regulation. You get 3 points. I also bet William Nylander to be the top point scorer. I bet William Nylander to be the top goal scorer in the tournament. These are all in the tournament. And I bet William Nylander to be the MVP of the tournament. I have a feeling here Sweden is being underrated. I think we're all looking Canada-US, Canada-US. I think Sweden's underrated. And I think Willie thrives in big moments and big spotlight situations. And he does it in the NHL too. Like, it's not like, oh, he just does it in international hockey. No. Willie does it in the NHL. And I think wearing this jersey, having the season he's having, being the kind of guy he is and the player he is in the big moment, I think Nylander might be buzzing this tournament, might be a guy to be looking at there for getting these points and goals and leading the tournament. Like, the other thing to look at here, by the way, is he's the guy in Sweden. Like, he's going to be the offensive guy, forward guy. Like, Canada's going to have some spreading out to do. Marner, McKinnon, McDavid, Crosby. The team's going to be unbelievable, but it's going to be a little bit more distributed. U.S., same thing. Sweden is a little bit more Willie. Just throwing it out there. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel, Leaf Station 401. This has been game number 55 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season, losing 2-1 to the Vancouver Canucks here tonight, moving to 33-20-2 on the season. Thanks for watching. We'll catch up with you guys in a couple of weeks. Until then, keep believing. For more content just like this, including game previews, post-game live shows, Leafs Morning Take, Monday through Friday with Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill with special guests, as well as instant reaction videos. Make sure to be subscribed here to the Leafs Nation YouTube channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss anything, and drop a like.